and same as that. And now this time though, he takes this on 2 more. So you end up this time, I think, of having 1, 2, 3, 4 as a another phrase, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So these kind of get, it's a little bit confusing, but this is basically 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 measure extension here. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 downbeat. So 3 phrases in this, and so that would be then a phrase group. And then at the end you've got this. Okay, this is a repetition of this, an octave higher. And then you have just a couple of measures which then cadence here on G sharp minor. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you count this, that would be 6. And then this is like a little connecting passage back to here. So just a short retransitional material there at the end of the exposition leading back to C sharp minor or going to C sharp major. So this closing theme is basically just a single 6 measure phrase. So at any rate, when you get into kind of the nitty-gritty of how the phrase construction goes, sometimes there can be a matter of opinion on how to look at things, but in general, that's the idea. All right, so now we're ready for the development section. And now in the development, you're always wanting to kind of take, a look to see, if you have double bars and repeats, you can work through the, exposition and be pretty, certain that you know where the exposition ends and where the development begins. So one thing that I want to point out, very important, which is then how to determine where the coda begins. And so what you're going to do is to look for the same material with which the closing theme ended. So the exposition ended here. And you're going to find that same corresponding place. So we're going to look for this closing material at the end of the recap. And so that material then is going to occur here. You expect it to be in tonic, which it is. So here we are in C sharp minor. And you basically, are going to have that same material. So you're going to have and so forth. So that's the return of that second closing idea. He does the same thing at the end, and then here was the little connecting, passage, the last 2 measures of the exposition, and then this shifts then to F sharp minor. So right here is where you would want to label the beginning of the coda, because this corresponds with this right here. So you had the 2 measure connecting passage, and then there is the return, and so it's that spot right there that you're going to locate. So there are the 2 measure little connecting passage. There it is. Shifts to F sharp minor. That's the beginning of the coda section. Okay, so that's one thing to remember. Find that closing material, find where it ends the exposition, and then go to the end of the recap. Locate that same material in tonic, then where that corresponds to the end of the exposition, which would be right here, then that is where the coda is going to begin. Okay, so keep that in mind when you are affixing your labels. All right, now in this development section, we're going to look first of all to see how long it is. We're going to look for the return of the opening material, C sharp minor. This one's going to have a real clear return, which occurs here at measure 102. So that is going to make this development section 37 measures long. So we said the exposition was 64 measures, and so the development is 37, so that is a little more than half the length. So it's classical proportions, so not not an extremely long development at all. And then we're going to compare that with the length of the coda and see how that works out. So one of the things that you look for at the end of the development section is that final passage that is the retransition, One of the characteristics of the retransition is a prolongation of the dominant harmony or a dominant pedal tone. In this case, we're going to have the dominant pedal tone, and that occurs here, right at this spot. So this is measure 87. And here you see you've got that dominant pedal tone through this whole final passage here. It really builds tension, you know, because you're expecting it to resolve, and that's the whole idea of prolonging this, is that it really builds up that sense of tension. And it finally resolves then when we get to the recap at 102. This is one of those spots where at the end of the development, it's the softest place in the whole movement. It's the one place that's marked pianissimo, and you have a decrescendo leading into it, and then you have forte piano here with the return of the opening material and beginning of the recap. So that finally releases all this tension that builds up beginning at 87 at the retransition. So this really has a pretty long retransition. And so that's something that you'll listen for here in a minute. Okay, so clearly the beginning of the development is related to the A theme. This, as you can see, is going to have this material here. So you have... So he brings back the B theme. He's going to develop the B theme here in subdominant. And he then reverses the hands. So at this point then, the left hand has the B theme. So the same basic thematic material there. And now the right hand has the Alberti harmonic background. And this is going to take you then to a modulation to G major. And so that is something that's a distant key. This has 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is then where the modulation occurs, is right here, and goes to that G major. The theme is still in the left hand. One of the things that you'll notice about the development is that it will be something that is not like in a song form pattern, but it will be, you know, different sections. So this opening section is A theme developed. This is the B theme developed. Here is your second key, so F sharp minor, G major. And then this is going to lead back to F sharp minor here. And this is then going to go from F sharp minor to, that would be a 7-7 harmony. And this is going to lead to that arrival point on dominant. And so that's the end of the second section that's developing the B theme. So when we get to this, then we're looking to see, okay, is this related to anything from the exposition? And you look through it and you say, well, I don't really see this that material is something that's new. And so you could just point that out, you know, it's got some new thematic idea. So 4 measures there. This is the same thing, an octave higher, and he's just embellishing that. So this and this are the same. And then he's going to keep extending that. So this is extension, and then you have that 2-7 chord to a 5-7, and then you've got that recap. All right, so basically 3 sections. So first section, A theme, second section is B theme, and then the final retransition passage that has new thematic material there. And then recap. Let's listen to that much now. left hand. So it's kind of that invertible counterpoint type idea. There we are, G major. Final phrase here before retransition. Yeah, you hear, that real resonant boom there for the return. And yeah, it can kind of make you jump in your seat when you hear that. Okay. All right, so, one little idea maybe that this could be related to just has to do with the end of this. So this is something new, but this material right here is kind of like the closing theme where you've got just a half note, at the end. So kind of related to that, but at any rate. All right, so now we're to the recap here at 102. As you hear this, you'll hear this is exactly the same. So 3 phrases again, real strong cadence point on half cadence on G sharp. And this is then where, in the exposition, then he started the transition. Here, though, he goes straight away to the B theme in tonic. So he didn't need to have those 6 measures that serve to modulate to G sharp minor. He just totally omits that and goes straight away to the B theme. So that's one thing that you have to do in the recapitulation is compare the way it's brought back to the way it was originally presented in the exposition. So for sure you want to do that on your final project and on that analysis on the final exam. All right, now we're going to compare this all to the way that you heard it the first time. When you do that, you'll note that it is exactly the same as it was when it was in G sharp minor. Everything now transposed to tonic. So that means then that you have this arrival point here on the Neapolitan harmony, on D major. The first time you heard it actually is right here at 127. And then there it is an octave lower. All of this is just like the way that he presented it in the exposition. All of this is the same closing material. So you want to label it the same way. That's one of the points I want to make. So if you labeled this at measure 43, if you label that as being the first closing idea, then you want to label this at 137 also as the first closing idea. So all of this is just as before, and then this would be closing 2, this is just as before, this is just as before, and here, as already talked about, that starts then the coda section. So the coda here is long, and in total it's 43 measures in length, and so that's longer than the development section. You would want to point that out. So if you're analyzing this, you'd want to point out that this has a long coda that actually is longer than the development section. So in many cases, like here, Beethoven elevates the role of the coda as something that really is equal to the development and greater, spends more time there. And so let's see what he does. So we start in F sharp minor, back to C sharp minor, and then he has a 7, 7, a 5 that he arpeggiates all the way up the keyboard. He does the same thing here with just a 7, 7 harmony. Same arpeggiation. And then that 7, 7 harmony then resolves to tonic. And then clearly you hear the B theme here. So it's in the left hand like you had in much of the development. So B theme is developed in the left hand. Now he positions it back in the right hand here. And this is going to lead to a cadenza. So this is a passage that is based on a harmonic formula here. And it leads then to this final passage that has a chromatic scale and then a 5/7 trill. And then there is an improvised passage work here that is, that fantasia idea of, the overall approach. And so, it's kind of like, a little cadenza type passage in a concerto, for instance. And the harmony gets to 1/6/4, and then you have 5/7, and then it cadences here, and he brings back the closing theme here at this tempo 1. So you want to go through and analyze the overall keys and chord progression. So all of this is based in C sharp minor tonic. So here we are in tonic, 5/7, back to 1/6, 5/6, and now he's going to change chords twice per measure, and then he's going to have one harmony for every 2 measures. So he's manipulating the harmonic rhythm here. So this goes from a 5/7/4 to a 4 chord to then a 5/4 to 4. Okay, so right here we're in subdominant, F sharp minor. So he arpeggiates that. He then gives you the same arpeggiation material, same figuration, and this is based on Neapolitan, so there's your D major. He gets to this point, it's the same type of material, where it's arpeggiating the same way, with the rising material being in 16th notes, the descending is in triplet 8th notes. And then this is a 7/7 of 5, leading to the 1/6/4 chord here. And so this is a real arrival point when you get then to this 5/7 harmony. And then he releases tension here at the resolution to tonic and bringing in the second closing theme. And he writes a very brilliant final phrase as this has a crescendo that leads to forte, and he ends with a theme material. And real exciting, brilliant conclusion. Okay, so let's listen to how this all comes back. So no retransition. That's a little unusual. So it's B theme. Next phrase. Cadences on C sharp minor, then Neapolitan. 5/7, Neapolitan. First closing idea. So you want to label that closing 1. Octave higher, just like before. Closing 2. Now, so that's a little transition coda. B theme, the left hand.